Go. Just adjust that. That looks better. No, much better.
Yeah, I'll just adjust this.
Shall I start the webinar?
Why
Let's
not?
have fun.
Yeah.
Release the hounds.
Oh.
That's just been recorded, Graham.
Corkscrew Thinking webinar series. Now, this is the second webinar that we've done on Corkscrew Thinking. Last week, Clark did What is Corkscrew Thinking? We had a great turnout for that. If you are looking for the link to that, we're more than happy to send that out to you so you can see it for free. Today, it's all about, okay, but how do I do corkscrew thinking? The first one was great, says Ella. Good morning from Nottingham in the UK. Awesome.
Nottingham. I know Nottingham. There's a forest there.
There's also a very old pub.
Ah. Very good. Oh, the numbers that we're ticking up again here. So what we're doing at the moment is we're trying to fill this awkward moment that happens at the beginning of these things where everyone starts trickling in and everyone's struggling, going, oh, I can't find the Zoom link. And oh no, my webcam's upside down and all that kind of stuff. So it's great to see. Yeah, we've got a bunch of people here. Vancouver. Excellent. Hertfordshire.
There's some great feedback here, Clark, on the first one was great. Somebody else just said, oh, I've just finished watching the first one. Looking forward to this one. So that's awesome. Great to see people doing their homework and going and checking out the first webinar. Just a reminder, this is the second webinar of 3. And so Graham's doing this one this week on, but how do I do it? And next week, we're going to talk about, well, what's holding you back? We're actually going to take corkscrew thinking. And as Clark actually says, I think it's quite clever the way he says it. He says, and we're going to apply it to the most interesting place in the world, our own brains. So we apply corkscrew thinking to our own brains. So that I'm actually looking forward to presenting that one. Today, how do I do it? And so once you know how to do it, then we can start thinking about, but how do we practice this? Awesome.
Cool. Good. Oh, we've got Germany. Excellent. Queensland. Hello there in Queensland, JT. Silicon Valley, California. I once stayed in Silicon Valley when I went there with General Electric, and I realized it wasn't quite proper Silicon Valley when the hotel I was staying in didn't have Wi-Fi in the rooms. I think you're probably in proper Silicon Valley there. James from Tennessee. Hello there. And James,
I've played rugby in Tennessee. Chattanooga.
Nice.
So Chattanooga rugby team had their very own version of the Chattanooga Choo Choo song.
All right. Don't tell us the lyrics. This has been recorded.
Awesome. Oh, about an hour from here, says James.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hey, so in the chat, it's great to see that people using the chat. We are going to ask you to have your input and to give us some additional content. Graham's actually going to facilitate going through a corkscrew thinking process. So really important to use the chat. But what we'd like you to do is when you use the chat, please don't just send it to the panelists, send it to everyone. So the attendees as well, so that everybody can get to see the chat. And at the end of the session, we're also going to ask you what's one highlight that you actually got from the webinar. That really helps us, so that when we do a similar one or we run more, then we know the kind of things that people are interested in. So just keep that in mind. At the end, we're going to ask you what is one highlight from the session. So you might want to make some mental notes as we go through the session. Look, it's moving along. Do you think it might be time to get stuck in?
Yep, I reckon we could get started.
Yeah.
Who's going to
Awesome. Hey,
introduce
Clark.
Graham?
Oh, well, I was actually, Clark, I think like last time you did a fantastic job of telling the story about how the three of us came together as a starting point.
Cool.
So,
Cool.
so maybe you could share that.
Okay, so just to catch it all up, and I think you've all probably heard this, but the three of us all live in New Zealand. Albeit one of us lives in the South Island, me. The other two live up in the North Island, and it's kind of we've just known each other. Graham and I both taught stuff at Victoria University Business School. And we bumped into each other through that. Carl and I bumped into each other through different circles, and he was doing some consulting work down here. But then, when the world collapsed a few months ago, we just started actually effectively we had our own little book club for the three of us, where we sat around and we moaned about the economy, and the world was drying up. But then we started talking about how we use TOC, because that's the thing that brings us together, the theory of constraints. And what we found is that we're standing on the shoulders of all the giants before us, but we've all developed our own ways of working in it, and they all kind of turned out to be kind of similar. So Carl does stuff with negotiation and breakdowns and people's and the workplace between unions and management and coaching with people. I do stuff in software development world. Graham teaches the thinking processes, and is also is done his MBA dissertation on budgeting, which is based on a full work through of Ali Goldrat's thinking processes applied to all the problems in budgeting. So we covered quite a lot of things that were different. But what we thought we'd do is just try and share some of the stuff that we've found that we do in common that you might not have heard about if you had only read the books. So this is kind of like, this isn't dumbed down version of TOC. This is the simplified up version of it. And we're just trying to share that because that's what we've gone through. So let me introduce Graham to you today. Graham teaches the thinking processes. He's a modern version of the thinking processes. If you've read about them in any of Ali's work or say Bill Detmer's work and stuff, Graham teaches a modernized version of those. He sells online courses for that. He is in the process of writing a delightfully small little book that kind of mixes the thinking processes with just simple little stories so you can learn TOC. And also, he's going to blush when I say this, but I learned so much from Graham when we chat, because he's kind of deep on this stuff. So I think you're all really lucky to be able to just sort of brush with Graham's many years of experience. And I'm probably going over the top now, but I'm looking forward to this. I will learn stuff from this. At the end of this session, now this isn't like a sales pitch, but Graham does do an online course. We'll give you the details of it and we'll email it out. But if you go through this stuff, you'll see a whole lot of stuff you should be able to already apply corkscrew thinking. If you wanted to be able to learn how to do it with a bit more detail, a bit more thoroughness, and maybe quite a bit faster, we'll give you details of that. But we just want you to do it. So Graham and I were chatting yesterday, and the one thing that we would like you to start asking yourself is when you get stuck, because you go, oh, should I do that? Should I do that? Oh, no, I don't know what to do. I'm torn between two choices. Ask yourself what Bob will do. What would Bob do? And this is a big part of it, is build a habit. Build a habit of recognizing when you're torn like that, and you just go, what would Bob do? I gave you the big picture last week. Graham's going to show you some more examples and fill in the details so you can kind of get your head around it so you don't have to make it up as you go. And with that, it's all yours, Graham.
Thank you very much. Right. Let's go. Okay, so today is all about how to implement some of the stuff that Clark talked about last week. Now, one of the questions that came up last week has made me actually redo a lot of my presentation today. And the question was around why isn't TOC more widely spread? And I think that's one of the things that any of us who've been exposed to us, it's so intuitive, it makes logical sense. Why isn't everyone using it? And I think personal theory is that it's partly because people get the concept, they just don't know how to implement it. And I think that's partly because we're missing opportunities to use this thinking. And what I want to try and do today is, Carl tells me it's a thing, he's the psychologist amongst us, so he knows all the real theory behind it. He tells me it's our reticular activating system. So this is the thing, you know how you go out and buy a new car and suddenly every second car you see on the road is the same as your one? You've never noticed it before, they've always been there. So what I want to try and do is just open up some of those channels so that you start to see opportunities. Oh, there's a cloud here. Oh, if Bob was here, this is what he'd do. So building on what Clark said last week, he talked about, I think he used traffic lights. I'm not quite that sophisticated, but there's different levels of complexity that problems have. Level 1 problems, I've said, they're the ones that you do in your head. You do them on automatic pilot, you don't even think about them. But hidden in all those is a cloud. Level 2 problems are ones that once you actually understand the problem properly, they solve themselves. And Eli Goldratt, often he refers to this corkscrew thinking as a cloud or an evaporating cloud. And he calls it that because when the problem's outlined properly, it just evaporates. The answer's obvious. And that will be most of the problems that you're dealing with. But there's another level again where you outline the problem properly, but it still feels unsolvable. It's the rock and a hard place thing. And for those, there's another level of corkscrew thinking that we'll cover today as well. So this is a thing called a transition table. This is another one of the tools. What we're looking at here is, this is how I construct my courses. This is how I plan seminars. This is how I do a whole lot of stuff, plan webinars even. The obstacle, the need, people don't know how to construct a cloud. Some people don't recognize when to use a cloud. They don't know how to solve these level 3 problems. And there's a whole nother level of core conflicts and things. So what I want to do is I'll take some actions here. I will do a simple demonstration. I'll share some of the real live clouds that I've used with clients over the years. We'll do some examples on how to solve these level 3 ones. And if we get time, I'll talk you through some of the core conflict clouds that I've worked on. So the effect we want is that you all know how to construct a cloud. You understand that there are multiple situations when it can be used. You've at least been exposed to how assumptions are the things that drive this, and also see just how deep and far and wide these clouds can go. So I love this quote. The chief cause of problems is solutions. I would add to that though and say that the chief cause of problems is poorly thought out solutions. So what we're doing today is making sure that firstly you understand the problem properly, so then you can come up with a better solution. So I draw my clouds on their sides. Clark does his vertically. I don't mind which way you do them. The effect we want is that it makes the problem more understandable. I tend to do it this way. I think it was Pablo Picasso that said something along the lines of, know the rules so you can break the rules. Clark's breaking rules. We'll start doing it this way. So, really simple thing. what made you turn up to the seminar? You could be here or you could not be here. So what I'd like people to do is just in the chat, if you could fire some stuff through so that we can fill this in. So what made you come to the seminar? What's the benefit in it for you? Now, for some reason, the chat has disappeared. I've got three screens going. So if Carl or Clark could help me out here.
Just going to jump in there, Graham, and say, right, yes, so please. Our job, Clark and myself are going to help Graham manage the chat. So, Graham, new knowledge, current work. Oh, there's lots of stuff coming in. This is really good. Make better decisions, expand my knowledge, better decision making, learn how to apply evaporating clouds in the context of TOC. Probably going a bit fast here, but new knowledge and better decisions. So the benefits that we would want to go to this webinar is new knowledge and better decisions. What else have we got? Oh, we've got a few more. Reinforce learning from the previous webinar. Be able to think more creatively. Learn something new. How to teach my team. Mostly curiosity to see the faces and hear wonderful Kiwi accent again. I love that. The wonderful Kiwi accent. We're from New Zealand. Increase ability in applying clouds.
I missed that one, Carl.
What was that?
I missed that last one.
Oh, that last one. Increase the ability in applying clouds.
Increase ability to apply clouds. Okay, nice. that's probably. I think so. Yes, but we might come back to that. Mm-hmm. So, what would be some of the benefits of not going to this, not coming to the webinar? Now, I know I'm not sure if Anil's here this time, but last time he was up at 2 in the morning in India to watch this. Yes. So perhaps
even Malta has just said the same. Sleeping.
Sleeping.
Right. The reason I wouldn't go to this webinar is so that I can sleep. Get through my emails. Focus on anything else. Get my work done.
Emails. Get my work done.
Make progress on other work on my to-do list. I'm not coming. I'm really tired, said Sarah.
And it's 8:30 p.m. in the UK. So Netflix, The Crown, has just come out.
Watch Netflix. Oh, because of course you can't go to the pub there.
Oh, there's football as well, according to Nat.
Oh, we could read Goldratt. Yep. Spend time with my wife and the cat.
Oh, that's so sweet. Assuming your wife and cat actually want to spend time with you, Roman. Just saying.
Okay, so there's a whole lot of reasons here not to have come to the webinar. What might an overall goal? Now, it's a little bit hard to mix and match. What sort of suggestions have we got?
Yeah. So what you're asking, just to help me with this, Graham. So if I manage to get new knowledge, better decisions, reinforce my learning, be creative, increase my ability with the clouds, and I also was able to sleep or get through my emails or get my work done or basically get anything else done, like entertainment or work, then if I had both of those things, what would the outcome be? What would the goal be? I'd feel good about myself, says Linda.
Yes, you'd live a good life.
Great, feel good about myself. Use my time most effectively. Okay, yep. Feel good about myself and use my time effectively. Awesome. Somebody else has said, oh, watch the recording. That's interesting. That sounds like it might be a solution very soon. Get some energy. So feel good about myself, live a good life, use my time effectively, and get some energy and self-improvement.
self-improvement.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how this cloud evolves, Graham, because this is live problem solving, and it's really, really interesting. The conflict between going to the webinar and not going to the webinar, but look at the needs and the goal. This is all of those things in those 3 boxes look pretty good to me.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing about these clouds, is that generally these 3 boxes here are good things. We want them. Occasionally we'll challenge that assumption, but we'll come to that later. But what it's forcing us to do is choose between 2 things that we can't have at the same time. At least that's our initial assumption anyway. So we've got this issue between the 2. Now, because this is really a level 1 problem, people have already solved it. You're either here or you're not, and there's some obvious solutions. Some people will watch the recording. Some people are probably doing some emails at the side while they're watching this, listening to it. So it's a relatively easy problem. But basically, that's the end of my talk, really. I've shown you how to do it. Off you go.
Oh, that's great, Graham, because we actually had a comment from one of the participants. I'm learning from this already. The confusion I had before was about starting from the bottom or left, but actually you start from the perceived conflict.
That's absolutely right. And this is where I think where Clark was talking about it last week, perhaps putting in this overall thing before you do these 2 bits. That's not the way I do it. I think for me, I'm looking at this is the conflict. What's the really good reason? What's the benefit behind this one? And relatively easy to come up with a whole lot. And what's the reason I wouldn't want to do it? Again, we can come up with a whole lot. And then what's the thing that binds these 2 together? And that's the power. That's the power of this, is that when we've got 2 people arguing about this, and of course those 2 people might be in your head, you know, those little voices. You guys all hear those little voices, don't you? Anyway,
one on one shoulder and one on the other.
Yeah. So it's these are the really good reasons for that. Now, generally in a cloud, you'll only grab one of these, and it's going to be the one that's most relevant to your situation. Sometimes you might revisit it. If you're having trouble connecting these 2, spend time with the wife and teaching my team. Oh, that should have been another one. Teaching the team and spending time with my wife. That you might struggle to connect those, so you might go for a different one. But that's basically start with a conflict and work backwards.
So this is really, when you're describing this, you're now taking something that's implicit, kind of bouncing on your head, and you're effectively showing you're working at this stage, like as if you're doing a maths problem, like in an exam. And then at the end of it, you're going to end up with a nice, clean, simple cloud. But you've got to go through this complexity where you put all this stuff out your head, splat it down on paper where it's explicit, and then you go through this simplification process. And that's where the magic happens, isn't it? Because otherwise it stays in your head.
Absolutely.
Lovely.
Yeah, and with all that complexity. And of
there's
course,
some really good stuff coming through the chat at the moment, Graham.
Okay.
So there's someone who says, there are different ways to approach it depending on what the problem is. Sometimes the conflict is easy to start with, and sometimes the goal is it all depends on the scenario. Somebody else says, I found there is no right or wrong way to a cloud. You approach it in your own way, but with the same thinking. So it doesn't matter where you start. I love that comment. It depends a bit on what the conflict is. With level 2 or 3 version, it might be hard to articulate the other side. There's some really good stuff. And I think one of the things that Graham said earlier, and just to reiterate, is Yeah, and some people do it on their sides, the conflict clouds on their side, and some people, like Clark, actually just turn them up and do them straight up and down like a corkscrew. The effect, though, Graham, can you just remind me, what was the effect that we're after, no matter how we use a conflict cloud?
Okay. The effect we want is that we understand the problem properly. We've taken to another level of understanding, and it may not be perfect. It just has to be a better level of understanding than you've got at the moment, and you're making progress. You know, the saying, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Okay, he hasn't got perfect 20/20 vision, but he's seeing it a hell of a lot better than anyone else there. And that's really the effect we're after. So let's just move on from that. And so for those of you that weren't here last time, this is Corkscrew Bob. BOB stands for Best of Both Worlds. And what we think is that here's our normal level of cleverness. I've stolen this from Clark's slides last week. When you use these clouds or corkscrew thinking, it adds, what was it, 20 or 30 IQ points, I think was Clark's bold statement last week. Perhaps it's a percentage improvement. Understanding the problem is the key to solving most of them. So when, again, we go back to Clark's one from last week, this was what happened with Churchill in the Admiralty in the First World War. Now, can you imagine that they didn't just sit down and draw this cloud? Can you imagine the conversations that were going on around the Admiralty table? We must convert to oil. We need more powerful ships. Yes, but it's no good having ships if they're stuck in the harbour because they've got no fuel. We need a reliable fuel source. That's why we have to go with coal. Yes, but coal-powered ships are underpowered. They're not fast enough. They'll get blown out of the water by the energy. We must have oil. Yes, but, and you're in this perpetual loop. No one's listening to the other. They're thinking that if I keep talking loud enough and long enough, the other side will see that I'm right. Ever been in a meeting like that? I know I have. And I was in, and again, trivial, simple little example. Both of my boys were swimmers. Being the parent that I was, I thought I'd join the swimming club committee and give them the benefit of my wisdom. I went to a meeting one night. Now, we had about 8 sponsors. They give $1,000 a year to the swimming club. And some of our committee members wanted to have a morning tea for these guys because we wanted to show that we appreciate them. However, these are busy, busy people. We need to respect their time. So a morning tea is not appropriate. Yes, but we need to acknowledge them, so we should have a morning tea. Yes, but these guys are busy. We shouldn't have a morning tea. This went round and round for 20 minutes, as you can imagine. So I got a little bit tired of listening to this. It's one of these committees where someone always brings some baking, so there was a pile of napkins in the middle of the table. So I took one of these napkins and I drew this on it and just put it in the middle of the table and sat back and waited. People started reading it, and gradually the noise went down and they stopped. What I'd done is I'd captured the conversation, just like the previous slide captured the conversation that was going on around the Admiralty boardroom. About 3 minutes later, we decided that we would buy our sponsors a voucher so they could go and have morning tea when it suited them. As it turned out, one of our sponsors was a local cafe, so we were able to give them some money back, perhaps introduce them to some new customers. I did suggest we ask them for a discount. I'm not sure whether it quite got to that stage or not. So trivial, simple example, making meetings go faster. So one of the things I want you to think about next time you're in a meeting or a conversation that's going round and round, what would Bob do?
It's interesting how it just moves there, Graham. It just suddenly, you put that up and I go, oh, okay, yeah. Respect their time. It's all about the sponsors. What do we actually argue? Why are we having an argument? What are we trying to achieve? And it becomes clear.
Yeah.
Yep. Lovely.
Yeah. It's about, clarifying the problem. Now, I think in the interest of time, I've got a mate who saved a couple of hours by using this same sort of thinking, but we'll leave that and come back to it if I'm running out of things to say later.
Hey, Graham, I just want to pick up on something. So there's been a bit of conversation in the chat about, to start with, you might want to pick problems that are a little easier to solve because you can kind of get to practice. And there's people saying in the chat that sometimes it can really twist your mind. You can actually start getting a little bit confused. And one of the things I've said, and I'm basically quoting you, is that the key to actually getting better at conflict clouds is to develop proficiency or getting more proficiency. So the more you practice, the better you get. So if you imagine CorkScrew Bob is a bit like, actually, I was thinking about this analogy the other day. It's a bit like martial arts. And imagine Corkscrew Bob, like, I don't know, does anybody know Karate Kid? And the Karate Kid doing, what did he call that thing?
Wax on, wax off.
Yeah, well, that. And also, was it not the
YMCA?
Mantis? YMCA, something like the crane kick. Yeah, so the important thing to keep in mind is that you actually have to practice those moves. And the more you practice them, the better they get. The better you get at them. So I think that's really important. And the more you become proficient with the conflict cloud, the more complex things the more things that you can solve. But there are deeper levels as well. And sometimes you might need several conflict clouds, but that's a whole different webinar. And it's a whole different discussion. What we're just talking here about is using the corkscrew thinking to get better understanding. And I still come back to it. The effect is to get a better understanding about what the problem actually is.
Yeah. It may not be perfect, but you're still going to be the one-eyed man in the land of the blind. So it's practice, practice, practice. And start with simple things and eventually you'll get fluent, you'll start thinking in clouds and you'll be a couple of steps ahead of everyone else. So the other time, or another opportunity to use clouds is anytime people are arguing, what it does is it gets people to work collaboratively. Now, instead of Clark against me, it's us against the problem. We both understand what the other side wants, and we're both working to give them what they want, but also protecting what we want. And this is one of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Seek first to understand, then be understood. Or as I like to say it, give people a damn good listening to. When they understand that you understand, you're in a place where the emotion's gone out of it, and you can have some good discussions, good conclusions. I used to run pre-COVID days an 8-day thinking course where we would take people right through all the thinking tools, and the idea was that they would come out fluent. They could go away and use these tools in every day. One of the courses, we had a husband and wife come along. They had a startup software company. He was the CEO, she was the CFO, and they were both really strong-willed people. We were warned about that. So for the first 3 days, they sat on opposite sides of the room. They were not allowed to look at each other's work. We just only let them talk to each other over a cup of coffee. by the end of the 8 days, they were just on fire. They booked a couple of nights in an Airbnb. They went away. We'd given them a tool where they could work together to solve the problem. So they were, really excited about it. And I think as they were driving away, he was driving and she was frantically drawing clouds and writing stuff out. So
can I build on that? Because I think that is a fantastic example when you're talking about two individuals. But I work in the space of workplace performance, and I often work with really large organizations, and we've got the same kind of thing. So imagine when a union who represents groups of employees and a company are at loggerheads, and that happens, that's the industrial conflict. And if you use a conflict cloud well, you can create an environment where instead of you, the union, and you, the company, against each other because of the problem, it becomes the union and the company against the problem. Now, there's more to it than to fix an industrial conflict like that, but it's a really, really good starting point to try and get to a place where the union and the company, instead of smashing heads, actually use a process or a tool where it becomes the union and the company against the problem. And then that's where the breakthroughs come from. And by the way, when those breakthroughs happen and the practice and they get more proficiency, that's when they start building trust. You don't try and get trust first. You problem solve to build trust. So back to your couple, you've actually just done some couples counseling because you've actually helped them to trust each other so that they can bring their stuff and their understanding to the situation. And you'll get better results from it. Sorry, I just had to add that in because I can see the big picture, but also when you're talking about the people that you're helping, fantastic use of the conflict cloud.
Well, it takes the emotion out of it. It stops the accusing, you're doing this just to deliberately upset me. Oh, okay, now I get it. You're doing it to protect this need. So what it also does is it makes people realize that their attachment to the D or D prime doesn't really matter. The stuff on the right-hand side, as long as I can achieve those middle two boxes, we don't really mind how we do it. As long as we get those two, we're happy. And it also reminds them that there's a common goal that we're both trying to achieve. So it also gives a way of bringing out the underlying assumptions. So as soon as it's laid out, for instance, that have a morning tea, don't have a morning tea, suddenly it solved itself. We can also
Graham,
use...
I'd like to pick up on this. So Susan's just saying, just like the main character's wife, Julie, in The Goal, she becomes a therapist and uses it. The goal is interesting. Most people think that the goal is just about manufacturing, but actually it's about problem solving and repairing relationships. And the Alex Rogo from The Goal, he actually, through Jonah's guidance, using these thinking processes, actually repairs his relationship with his wife, repairs his relationship with his daughter, I think, from memory, but also with the employees that work for him and the board. So now I know it's a slightly different take on the goal than most people are used to, but that's certainly what I see. And Clark, we actually ran a webinar a little while ago on the impacts of problem solving and what the benefits are. So I just wanted to pick up on that because that's a really nice call, Susan. Sorry, Graham, just wanted to add in.
No, it's I'm glad there's someone out there listening. So we can also use a cloud to sort of reverse engineer someone else's behavior. It makes you stop and think about the motives of others. And this is, again, one of my favorite quotes. Never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity. Now, I don't actually believe this particularly, it's just a nice quote. I think most people are rational, most people are good. They don't come to work just to ruin someone else's day, but it happens. I had one of my staff come and see me. Let's call her Clarkette, say. She came and said, I'm trying to get my work done, but let's call the other one Carlina, keeps coming and interrupting me, and it's really driving me round the bend. Oh, okay. So what are you trying to do that you're being interrupted? Well, I'm trying to get this client's work done as quickly and efficiently as I can. And all these interruptions, it just breaks my flow, and it's just awful. Now, this lady, Clarkette, is one where whenever I walk in the morning, I always go around the office, I say good morning to everyone except this lady. She hates being interrupted so much that even saying good morning, she's happier if I just leave her alone. So it was really grating on her. So I said to her, well, what do you think Carlina's doing this for? Oh, I don't know. Well, why do you think? I mean, she's not a nasty person, is she? Oh, no, she's good. Okay, so why do you think she keeps interrupting you? What sort of things? Oh, well, it's always because she's got a client that's, wants something done. Oh, so she's trying to keep clients happy. Oh, okay. So we drew out something like this. In order to look after our clients, we need to be responsive to their requests. And in order to do that, sometimes that means we have to interrupt others. But in order to look after our clients, we need to do their work efficiently. I mean, we charge them basically by the hour, so it's unfair not to do it inefficiently. And that means not interrupting others. So just putting it down like that, it just diffused the whole situation. And we had a conversation about the sort of things that, we could do to help this. So one of the things that we need to, that we now have as our standard office practice is that there was an assumption in here that every client wants everything done right now. And that's not the case. So now we always ask, now, when would you like this done? Or can I get back to you next week? And people are quite happy with that. So now that means that every time Carlina's got a list, she can wait till Clarkette's at morning tea or having a break, or is happy to be interrupted. So that's one of the things. And I don't know, I'm sure Clark and Carl remember a show years ago called Get Smart. And they had a thing called the cone of silence.
I've been trying not to interrupt, Graham.
It doesn't matter if you don't know the story, but we have a small traffic cone. When that cone is on your desk, no interruptions. So when people know they've got some deep, high-powered thinking, they need a patch of time without being interrupted, they can either take themselves off to one of the rooms we've got set up, or they put that cone down. So great for understanding others. Now, understanding your own behaviour, I just want to scratch the surface of this. Carl's going to build it on it next week. But we all have behaviours that we're not happy with, and yet we still keep doing them. We have these blind spots. Behaviours that have worked for us in the past are now causing us problems. We procrastinate, we're competitive, we're people pleasers, we avoid selling perhaps, we don't like asking for money, we overeat, we under-exercise, we self-sabotage. So I was having I've been doing some business development with a client at the moment, and we got together one week and she hadn't done what she said she would do last week. And she said to me, well, I was just procrastinating. And so we started building on this. So you're procrastinating. What would happen if you didn't procrastinate? What's the benefit of that? Oh, she said, it'd be great. I would get so much stuff done. Oh, okay. So if you got so much stuff done, you wouldn't be procrastinating. What's the benefit in procrastinating? And she said, what do you mean? Well, I said, well, there's a real good benefit in not procrastinating. Logically, you should be not procrastinating. So why are you doing it? And then used the power of silence, went quiet. She thought about it. She thought about it and eventually decided that she was a perfectionist. She liked to get things right. In fact, I might have asked her exactly what she meant by her definition of procrastinate. For her, she does work, but she never finishes things. And she realized she didn't finish things because they were never quite perfect. Mm. So why do you want to get things done and get everything perfect? Well, I always want to do my best. So suddenly she understood what was happening. Now at this stage, this is a level 3 problem. We weren't quite sure what to do about it, but we'll come back to it. It revealed her blind spot though. She now knows what's causing her to procrastinate and has something to work on.
Can I just interrupt there, Graham? Because
yes, please.
That one just reminds me of something years and years and years ago. I was getting really stressed out at work, waking up at 2 a.m. Thoughts going through my head. And I sat down and I did a cloud, not about the problems, but about getting be stressed versus don't be stressed. And it never occurred to me, and it's the same as this, that there was a benefit in being stressed. I know the benefit in not being stressed, but it was telling me to focus and figure out how to solve this problem because it was really important. And until I did that, it's just very similar to that. You don't often understand what you get out of the thing you don't like.
You never think to ask the question, what's the benefit in having that extra donut? What's the benefit in not going for a run? What's the benefit in being competitive?
Yep.
Hey, Graham, just picking up on that, and I'm conscious about interrupting, so you'll just tell me when to go away. But there's I
can feel a cloud forming in my head.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell Carl to shut up, don't you?
Yeah, indeed. Oh, I won't do that. Look, there is some really interesting psychology in this, because what often happens that, I actually picked up, and in the chat I put the power of silence. And the power of silence is important because when you ask somebody, what is the need to procrastinate? They will usually say straight away, there is no need to procrastinate. But Graham's question was really good. So why are you procrastinating if there is no need? There is always a need. And Robert Keegan, who is an adult developmental psychologist, really captures this well. He calls it a secondary commitment. It's a secondary commitment, and often we don't know that we have a secondary commitment. It's hidden. It's actually in the back of our head. We don't realize that it's to get everything perfect. That's our secondary commitment. Our primary commitment is to get lots of stuff done, but our secondary commitment is to get it perfect. So we can use the conflict cloud to access what our secondary commitments are. Now, because they're unconscious, they are usually harder to get access to. But using a conflict cloud, it helps us to get more clarity as to what's actually going on for us as a secondary commitment. And the secondary commitments, there's always a benefit to them. So I just wanted to pick that up because there's some really strong psychology with the cloud and what they call immunity to change. If you ever find somebody who has some immunity to change, it's because they don't know what their secondary commitment is. And when you find the secondary commitment, it makes it easier to make some change. NLP calls this a secondary gain because every behavior has a positive driver. Thanks, JT. You're absolutely on it. That's exactly right. A secondary gain. I'm not going to get into NLP, but certainly there are some links to neuroassociation and how our brain works. Sorry, Graham. I just wanted to.
That's fine. I'll look forward to you building on this next week.
I will do exactly that.
I'm not sure if I've heard you talk about secondary commitments before, but it certainly makes sense.
That's a new one for me. I love it.
Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah. All right. Now I'm going to have to rewrite the thing for, for next week. Secondary commitments.
Yeah, that happened to me after last week as well. No sympathy at all. So some of the examples that I've shown reasonably trivial. On a more strategic level, I was at a board meeting a while ago. There was a discussion going round and round the table. Basically, this company, there are two really big customers in the marketplace. They were doing business with one of them, and the other one that they weren't doing business with had a problem that they could solve. It was a big opportunity, but they didn't want to risk upsetting their existing customer. So again, we get this figure of 8 loop. Oh, we need to grow the business. We should approach these other guys. Yeah, but we don't want to lose our main customer. We shouldn't approach them. Round and round and round. And we got to the stage, in order to have a more profitable business, we need to grow it, which means we should approach the non-customer. In order to have a more profitable business, we need to make sure we don't lose our existing customer, so we shouldn't approach them. Now, once it was laid out like that, about 2 minutes later, they decided that this side was invalid, that we had to look after ourselves, that in actual fact, the risk of the existing customer leaving was very small. They couldn't get what we could do from anywhere else. So this was a real evaporating cloud. But what if it wasn't? What's the next step? How do you break open those level 3 problems? So if we go back to this one of this slide from Clark's, right to the left-hand side, before we got to this cloud, we had all the discussion around the table, and this cloud then captured that discussion. How on earth then did we make the jump from before to after? And the reason it was able, well, I'm not sure of the actual process that they used, but this is a process that we could use. And it's all about surfacing the underlying assumptions behind this. So once you've got your cloud laid out, I think the inner skeptic in us starts automatically coming up with assumptions, the reason it's not true. And I think this is built into our psychology. We're skeptical of new ideas. And I'm sure it dates back to the time when we were cavemen and someone said, hey, let's go and throw rocks at that saber-toothed tiger. And the other person, what could possibly go wrong? What's wrong with this scenario? So we're tapping into this psychology. So for this to be true, then there's a whole lot of assumptions which must also be true. So first of all, oil and coal are the only options. There's no other technology. Obviously, they haven't invented nuclear power at that stage. Coal power can never be powerful. Oil chains, supply chains are unreliable. There's no way to make the oil supply chain reliable. Britain cannot control the oil supply. Oil cannot be turned into coal. Oil and coal power can't be used on the same ship. Coal will never run out. Coal is the only reliable fuel supply available. All powerful ships run on oil. Sufficient oil cannot be stockpiled. There are no local sources of oil. I'm assuming they hadn't discovered the North Sea oil at that stage. All sources of oil are unreliable. Welsh coal miners never strike. Now, you can probably see this took me, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes to put together. I could keep going and going and going. It's raising these assumptions that gives you a clue to where the solution might be. Now, this is a creative process. Some of these perhaps don't make sense. Some of you may have knowledge that invalidates some of these. It doesn't really matter. It's a volume. In a creative process, volume trumps quality. Just get them out there. Now, from what we know of the story, it seems that this one here, Britain cannot control the oil supply, was the one that they chose to hit, and they went and got a 51% share in Persian oil. Now, I can guarantee that when they got to, where are we? From Britain cannot control the oil supply to Britain can control the oil supply, there would have been a whole nother conversation that went on. And I can just imagine there would have been things like, well, we don't know where the best oil is. We don't know how much oil each country has. We don't know which company we should invest in. We don't know if we can control the company. We don't know how much it'll cost to buy in. We don't know how long it'll take. We don't know the oil fields where Germany is a threat. It's just not as simple as go out and buy 51%. We do have a tool for that. It's called a prerequisite tree, and it's something for another webinar. But just want you to understand that there's a process, first of all, to capture the conversation into a cloud. Then there's the assumption raising process to find the direction of a solution. Britain can control the oil supply. And then there's other tools that help you break it down into an implementable project. So just going back to my procrastinating lady, this is what we did with her. This outlines the problem, but we haven't got to a solution. Now, in her case, we decided that the arrow we wanted to challenge was this one, that actually maybe things didn't need to be perfect. So what we did is we looked at this and said, in order to always do my best, I must get things perfect. And these are the assumptions we came up with, because my customers always demand the best. My customers know what perfect is. My perfect is always what the customers want. I'm the only one who knows what perfect is. 90% is never good enough for my customers. Only 100% will do. Everyone always wants the best. Everyone always wants the same. People are always prepared to pay for the best. Good enough is never good enough. No one will shop with me if it's not perfect. I cannot come back later and fix it. I cannot make a start if I don't know how to finish. Everything must be perfect before it is in the shop floor, on the shop floor or website. Now, you don't know this lady, you don't know her retail shop, but I'm guessing that there's a few of these that your spider senses are starting to tingle and say, well, that's not right. And so that's what we did with her. We took this list. In order to always do my best, I must not get things perfect because my customers don't always demand the best, don't know what perfect is. My perfect is not what the customers want. And we just went through and reversed these. What she settled on was good enough is always good enough. She was the sort of person that people would walk into her shop and say, oh, I just love your shop, it's so cool. And she'd be, oh, well, you know, it'll be quite good when I've finished it. she started embracing that and saying to her customers, yeah, I really like it here. She started to realize that most customers couldn't tell the difference between 80% and 100% anyway. And she was putting so much time and energy into getting it from 95 to 100. And I spoke to her 3 or 4 weeks later, and she said she was looking at coming off her blood pressure pills. So I thought that was a pretty cool win.
And that is probably a really good way. We're just having the 10:30 mark, so we're coming close to having time.
Hell. Right.
I know.
Okay.
You're having too much fun, Graham. I could see that.
Yeah.
Keep going versus not keep going. There's the conflict.
And this is okay.
Do you have a slide that you want to wrap up on? Because I just thought, like, that's gold. Good enough is always good enough. And when it comes to using a conflict cloud and starting to practice it and get proficient at it, right now, good enough is good enough. Just keep doing it. I love this. Yeah. Ella has already jumped in because she knows that at the end of our webinars, we always ask a golden question, which is, what is the highlight or takeaway from this session? Now, even though Graham hasn't managed to get through his content, he's racing now to get through all his content. He's going fast. Graham, look, are we going to call this, right? The kapow is you use
hang on, I'll just, I'll just, going back, level 1 problems you already do in your head. Level 2 problems, once they're in a cloud, they'll sort themselves out. Level 3 problems, you'll need to start raising assumptions. When you get fluent, when you get practiced, you will start solving level 2 problems in your head. And when you get used to raising assumptions, you'll even solve level 3 problems in your head. So when you're in a conversation with someone, Clark told me I had to end on a kapow. So this is the kapow. Once you get fluent in these things, you will start coming up with ideas. And I don't know where some of my ideas come from, but people will look at me like I'm from another planet, and no one ever says, how did you come up with this idea? They just assume that I'm clever or intuitive or magic or something like that. What they don't understand is I've got a system. I've been writing out clouds so long that I now think in clouds. I've been raising assumptions for so long that they just pop out of all places. You can see which ones need challenging. You can offer up a solution, and it's all happening behind the scenes. So if you want that same superpower, you just need to start practicing using clouds. So next time you see a decision, figure out your 2 options, work out the benefit for each, come up with your common goal, and start wowing people. And good enough is good enough. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to raise your level of thinking slightly higher than the people around you, and they'll think you're very clever. Right. So thank you. Apologies for running a few minutes over.
That's cool. That's awesome. My head is actually full, so that's the perfect place to finish. Can I make an executive decision and just say that either in December or in January we'll do the advanced version of this, which is the stuff that you've seen Graham inadvertently tease you with as he paced through. It'd be far better spoken out than just seeing the slides. So we'll add that on, and you can come back to that later. I honestly think if you got it now, it might be interesting, but you're better to take this because this is good enough to get you going. Can I just, so for me, the kapow bit is what you were telling me yesterday, Graham, which is to get the habit of this, just to get the habit. Don't let perfection get in the way of you actually doing this. Just start thinking about it, make it scruffy, make it rubbish, just lifting, doing that up thinking as I describe it, moving from the the conflicting boxes to the middle boxes will help you suddenly clarify things enormously. And if you want to do that, just get in your head, just notice when you're torn because a decision hasn't happened instantaneously. When you're stuck and you go, oh, I don't know, just start the process and ask, what would Bob do? And that's what you've seen so far. And that will solve 80-90% of your problems, and it will just give you so much clarity. That's what I would suggest. Now, I see there's a whole lot of stuff coming over here in the list. Could we go back to Carl's question and just, there may be stuff there, and if there is, you read it out, Carl, as we go. But what's the highlight?
Yeah.
What's the highlight that you've taken from this? You can have more than one, but if you if you go back after this and someone says, what'd you get out of that? What's the one thing you'd love to just share? It's helpful for us to know, but it's helpful for you because it will help you consolidate this.
So somebody has already said, my takeaway, good enough is always good enough. I too have that perfectionist conflict. There's been a few people who have made some comments about the value or the benefit or the insight that they've had. Also, somebody asked, can we have a link to Graham's course on the conflict cloud for building proficiency? I've put that in the chat. But look, what I suggest, if you're going to do that, go to the preview and go and have a look in the preview. Don't pay the full price for the course. Do not pay the full price for the course. Go and have a look at the preview. And then if you want to go further than that, let us know. Contact us. Clark will be sending out links to this video. And so we can add those additional links in as well. But first step, just go and check out the preview. Have a look at that. What are some of the other highlights? Keep practicing was the highlight. Getting on the same side to solve the problem instead of the conflict and get a better understanding of another. Need to practice this. I love Graham's quote, give people a damn good listening to. I love that too. I think that's great. Somebody else said a secondary gain. What do you think of the Harmony decision-making process? I think it's built on Goldrat's thinking processes. So that's a really, really good start. Yes, I will need the advanced session. I think, Graham, you're going to have to start thinking about the next webinar and what else you might do, the course details. Give me more, they say, give me more. Love the quote about surprising connection between problems and solution. Just couldn't remember it. I could see that in writing somewhere. Oh, could I see that in writing somewhere? Yes, we could probably organize that at some stage. Could we get the slides from last week? I think you've already dealt with that, Clark. Probably the slides.
Definitely. The slides are tricky to share because there's so much animation. Right. But I'll have a think. When we package this sort of stuff up so other people can look at it later, definitely.
Yeah. Great to hear all the three of you at this time in the night. So refreshing and interesting. Well, that's great. Good enough. Slides are good enough. Good enough. Slides are good enough. I love it. You talked about how people don't get TOC. It's nice to have an outlet to hear from TOC practitioners. Thanks, James. Really appreciate that. That's an awesome comment. Great interaction amongst the three of you. It's like you do this all the time. Funny, like we've been kind of catching up and talking to each other for, well, every week since March. And then somewhere along the line, somebody decided it was a good idea that we actually just get together and have a chat with the great people like you who are showing up for this stuff. So, and we're really pleased that we can bring this stuff and share it. All three of us are really, really passionate. And what we've realized is we've all come at it from different perspectives and different angles, which is why, and you know, Clark has been fantastic. Like he came up with this idea of the bottleneck guy. It was from his book, The Bottleneck Rules. But he said to us, look, we're actually all bottleneck guys. We just come from different perspectives. Clark is in IT and customer value. I come from people bottlenecks and looking at culture. And Graham, he's clever because he does two things. He looks at financial bottlenecks and constraints, but he also teaches TOC. So he's probably got one up on us on that. Another comment here. Yeah, great chemistry. Also in the chat, really enjoyed it. Thanks. We've been kind of working out how one of us can talk and share ideas while the other, while the rest of us are kind of trying to help people in the chat and answer questions. Great interaction amongst the three of you. Oh yeah, it's like we do all the time. We already said that one. Yeah. Hey, this is really, really good comments. I'm conscious we're 10 minutes over. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got another one next week, so don't forget there's another session next Thursday. And well, it's actually Thursday in New Zealand. I'm not sure if it's Thursday everywhere else in the world.
Remember, we're in the future, Carl.
We're in the future. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. Who is the certified TOC practitioner? I'm sure if you go and have a look at our bios on LinkedIn, you will find what our background and skill is in terms of TOC. I started the webinar really tired, but now I'm energized. Is it Sarah or Sarah? I'm never sure. My mum has that spelling, S-A-R-A, and she calls herself Sarah, but I know other people say Sarah. Thanks. So it's great that that's energized. You don't know? I'm curious about that. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, JT. Yep. Any other comments or highlights from the session? Clark, do you want to say something?
While you're waiting stuff, come back next week because now Carl has to look embarrassed here. And this is a little advert for next week where you learn to be wiser by spending time with Carl. Carl, I don't know if this is natural or you just learned it. Carl is super intuitive about people. And he uses the clouds and some of the other tools here to help people work together better and to help them grow. So it's the stuff inside your head. If you think about this as bottlenecks in your brain, this is where Carl's going to go next week. You'll find, it's basically what's holding you back. So come back next week. Draw a little cloud if you're bothered, like we started with at the beginning. And you might just go, yes, it's worth going because I really enjoyed the experience of actually watching it live. And I tell you, if there's one lovely thing you could do for us, if you can turn up live, it actually makes it a lot more interesting to have the stuff coming through here and we can bounce off it. And I must echo, just as we wrap this up, Ella, you have summed it up perfectly. I admire Graham's calmness.
Totally.
Yeah. So if we're not the good, the bad, the ugly, we're the good, the bad, and the calm. And that is that. It's just, I think the mixture of the three of us here, we've all got different angles, but this is kind of meaty. We will follow up definitely with Graham's part 2. But next week, come on for Carl, and you will learn how to get in the most interesting place in the world, inside your head. There you go.
Awesome.
So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Graham, for your calmness. Loved it.
No problem at all.
Sadly, I like to think I'm the good-looking one. So, right, that's
right.
Should have gone on mute, shouldn't I?
Yeah. Did I say that out loud?
We're still live, but this is like watching the people relax after the news show, and it's just like, well, so the webinar's done now. Look, you guys can hang out with us as long as you like. We're just going to hang here and chat for a little bit. That was really good fun, guys. Really enjoyed that. Yeah. Graham, that last piece was just awesome. Calmness. Perfect. That's exactly what you want, is a safe pair of hands looking after the money and teaching us TOC. Awesome.
No problem.
Lovely to see you, Jack, Gideon, Jay. Thank you. That's really good. Steve, always good to see you.
Thank you, Gideon, for all your feedback. Gideon's been one of my beta testers on the course.
Gideon,
so giving me some really good ideas. Yeah.
Melissa, thank you. That's really good. Jim, lovely to see you. Ella, lovely stuff. Thank you, Hal. Hal, just in case everyone doesn't know, Hal's probably gone now, so I can say this. Hal was a big influence on me about 20 years ago. Does lean construction stuff. Has written a wonderful little book. Look for Hal Macomber, Macomber, on Amazon. It's really good. Carl too, to borrow the expression I used at the beginning of the thing. I nicked it off Linda, who has been in the background here. Hal doesn't dumb things down. He simplifies them up. That's really.
I love that too. Simplifying up.
Oh, hey, thank you. There we go.
Michael, see you back again. That's great to see you.
Sib, lovely. And JT, thank you for your input there. Lovely, that's brilliant. And Roman, Bill, Christian, yes, actually that was a nice comment. So refreshing and interesting. And we've got 5 more. Graham, have you finished the Druid? Graham, have you done your homework yet?
I think the Australian Rugby Union is more than one Druid, Robert. That's a whole CRT all by itself. We'll just have to hope that the injection of Dave Rennie is enough to keep them afloat.
Some of the comments coming through are actually just directly to us, and we're just sharing those as we go. So some of these comments are directly to the panelists, but we're just sharing them with you. I particularly like this one. Thank you. Plan to practice clouds tomorrow to become proficient. And I think that is gold. Yeah. That is awesome. And if we can help you in any way to practice the clouds and become more proficient, it will make a world of difference to your lives, just as it has to the 3 of us. That's been has amazing impact on all of our lives. Awesome. And so nice to hear folks talking with TOC language. I am on my lonesome over here. Well, not anymore, because you're now here with us in New Zealand as well. We're global, talking this stuff. Oh, look, there you go. See Clark straight in there. So where are you based, Susan? Boston. Nice. Look, we don't have to be constrained by geography anymore.
No.
We can actually be collectively in the space together. This is something that we're all learning actually in this world now, is that we can actually collectively come together and share and learn from each other. There's some people on this that have been in the participants who we've all gained tremendous knowledge and information from over the time. So it's great that there's this kind of community starting to come together. Great to build a TOC community. Absolutely, that's exactly on point. And we certainly are grateful to all of the people out there that are sharing stuff with us as we share it with them. John says, another good webinar, thanks. Hey, we're kind of coming to a bit of a close now. Look forward to catching up with everyone next week.
10 seconds. I'm going to hit the end meeting for all button here. So thank you, Graham. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. Look forward to next week.
And we will hear from Robert Bolton at some time soon as well.
Yes.